Hi, I'm Marina Sirtis, and you're going boldly with Beyond Trek podcast.
This is Beyond Trek podcast, your source for Star Trek on social media and around the web. I'm Big J.
I'm Watney.
And I'm Dag, the Trivia Master. You can find us on Facebook at Beyond Trek Podcast and on Twitter at Beyond Trek Pod.
Red alert.
ELH, do you like ELH or?
ELH, Mike, hey
Mike?
you,
Okay.
that guy.
ELH, Mike, hey you, that guy. Well, first, before we get going, I've got to get my prune juice ready. And my so ELH, look at this mug I've got. It says "I choose you," and choose is spelled CHEWS. It's Chewbacca. It's Chewbacca mug. Yeah, I got this. My wife got me this. So
Sticking with the old Hydro Flask today.
Pint glass.
Pint glass.
I have a green Solo cup of mystery liquid.
Oh, mystery liquid.
Creative juice.
Oh, right.
That's what we call it.
You're right, if that's what you want to call it. So what does ELH stand for?
So actually, that's a funny story. It started, believe it or not, all the way back in 2011. I was on 4chan, as you know, I was an avid 4chaner back in the day. As you do.
Yes.
And basically what happened is I made a joke about Star Trek. I don't remember the full context of it anymore, but it was one of those things where we were getting into a logistical conversation. And I eventually just started role-playing as the emergency logistical hologram.
Oh, okay. I get it.
Dag is like, yes. Tell me more.
Dag loves his logistics. He's good with that. He's a very
and
detailed.
His holograms.
Right.
That's true.
Cool. Well, let's do intros real fast.
Yeah.
I'm Watney. Welcome to Beyond Trek podcast. I have my illustrious co-host Dag and Big J with me this afternoon. How you doing, guys?
We're good.
Pretty good.
Good. We have, of course, our guest ELH with us today. Do you want to introduce yourself, Mike?
Yeah, so I'm ELH, or Mike, as some of you now know. Not really a reason why I've kept my name a secret this entire time. It's just no one's asked, so I haven't said it. But no, I am the moderator, the sole moderator of Star Trek Adventures subreddit. I run way too many Star Trek Adventures games on the internet. And some say I might be insane, but they're probably right.
I can attest to 2 out of 3 of those claims. So,
Well, you keep yourself pretty busy out in the online community.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you're gonna tell us a little more about. Now, I've noticed that Dag and Watney have been moonlighting during the week, doing this role-playing game. So, you guys want to tell me a little bit about what you're doing there?
Sure. I guess since I play the captain, I'll go first.
Oh God, you're the captain. You're the captain of this thing.
I am. I don't know how it's still flying around, but so Tuesday nights, I think it's 8 Eastern.
9 Eastern.
9 Eastern. Tuesday nights, 9 Eastern time. Me, ELH, Dag, and a few other players get together on Twitch and we play Star Trek Adventures. Our game is the USS Fenrir. So that's our ship we're flying around. Cerberus class, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. So I thought I should know these things, but I'm off the clock. So you have to let it slide.
She's a part-time captain.
Yeah. So in this game, we're exploring the Sabine Expanse, which is an uncharted area of the galaxy. I do play the captain. Her name is Bree Archuleta. She's a human female in her late 30s and loves to get out there and explore. If you want to know more, you'll just have to watch.
Oh, yes. Now, where can we, before we talk to Mike more about his building a community, real quick, why don't you tell us, and we'll repeat it again later on, but can you tell us where do we watch these things? Where can our listeners and viewers see you guys do these adventures?
Earth.
Well, yeah, Earth is a good one. No, it's real simple. It is ELH MK1, ELH Mark 1
On Twitch.
on
Beautiful.
On
Twitch
Twitch.
and
Oh,
on
okay.
YouTube.
So
Mhm.
Twitch and YouTube, ELH MK1 for Mark
Mhm.
1. Okay. All right. I did see a little bit of it. Been able to see some of these matches. Well, I think match is not the right word. Role-playing adventures you guys have done. It seems pretty interesting to me. It looks like you guys have fun doing that. Now, Mike, how did you find yourself as the sole moderator of a community, a role-playing community on Reddit?
So it started off, I was running the Arcadia game way back when Star Trek Adventures had just come out.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that the initial STA subreddit, it didn't have active moderators. One was like shadow banned, and the other one just wasn't doing anything.
Mm.
So I basically submitted to the one that was still on Reddit but not doing anything, and I said, "Hey, do you want another moderator?" And he pretty much just brought me on board. And then he dropped off, and then the other guy got removed. I didn't do the removal. Reddit did the removal, but it was just me there for the longest time.
So,
And that was right when this started,
Correct.
right when they released Star Trek Adventures.
Correct.
And since then, how many subscribers do you have now, roundabout?
I want to say we have. I'll pull it up and look.
we're going to put you on the spot now. You weren't ready for that.
No, I was not ready for a.
Sorry.
I'm gonna
you're
go with
fine.
12.
12.
12.
Looks like we've got just shy of 2.5K.
Oh, okay.
I'm under the number, so I win the Price is Right.
Nice.
Well, that's
Yeah.
pretty good. So you said you had some issues with moderators who just were inactive, not really participating or do anything with that. So how do you? I was going to ask you how you build a team of moderators, but you've chosen to go solo and just run it yourself. Now, is that manageable? What was that? Just you didn't want to run into another case again where you had people that were working with you and did well for a day or two, and then suddenly they're off the reservation and they're not active anymore?
I would say it's a little bit of both. I sort of have a little bit of a perfectionist side to me, as I'm sure Watney and Dag know.
Mhm.
And it's one of the things where if I were to bring on another moderator, I would have such a long list of requirements that it's honestly just easier for me to moderate it myself. And it's not that bad. I maybe have to look at auto moderator once a week. We honestly don't have
Nice.
that many moderatable things on the subreddit. Most people behave, which is great.
Well, and
Yeah.
I think that's a lot to ask for these days, because I've been on that site and I can tell you it's just have the anonymity, and if I can say it, anonymity. It's like, hey, I can do and say whatever I want. There's no such thing as repercussions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know that we've had you on the podcast before, ELH, and that was back before I joined, I think before Dag even joined, when Big J was doing United Federation of Reddit.
Mm-hmm.
Is that was the podcast name, right?
Yes.
Back
Yep,
then.
that's right.
Yeah. So that was focusing mainly on Reddit communities. And I know back then we had, some things go down on the subreddit, as they do. Most subreddits have a drama spell or 3.
No,
but-
drama on Reddit? No.
Yeah. But I think when you have, 25K subscribers, it's a big, small town. So you have a lot of quality content that people are posting, and it does kind of moderate itself after a certain point. So, but before we go on, I talked about Bree, but I want to hear Dag talk about his characters in our Fenrir game.
So I like to be a little more creative and eccentric and get an idea for who's already present so that I can contribute to that group. My thought process behind that is 20 years old, ever since I started playing D&D just after high school in 2000. I always entered games not as a who do I want to be, but what does this team need? And Watney, you were the person to tell me back in November, December that your game was going to be looking for people. And I messaged ELH and was like, "So what are you looking for?" And I got the application and I went through the application, and your team, the crew needed a science officer, and there were temporal shenanigans, which if you've spent more than 10 minutes with me, you'll know two things. I'm fanatical about Star Trek and time travel. So when I learned that you needed a science officer on a Star Trek bridge who was versed in time travel, I kind of went off the deep end on my own. But I created this character that is a hologram that used to be a computer archive at the Vulcan Science Academy. So he's a Vulcan with pointy ears and everything, Vulcan hologram, who serves as lieutenant commander in the sciences division aboard Fenrir. That's my primary character. And I just want to put a shout out with Lee Tobin. We're like besties. It's awesome. At least
yeah, we have a good
Vassar and
group
Lee
for
Tobin
sure.
Are work really well together as being the two science officers on the ship.
And your captain thanks you for it. So,
well, if we can get Vassar operational again, that'll be great.
Yeah.
My second character is just a Goan with the Brooklyn accent.
Oh my god, that's great.
He runs the transporters, makes sure everything is supremo with the transporters. But if you want to catch more of him, you got to watch the show.
And now, please do. So
it does sound very interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's really fun. It's if you're a Trek fan, you really can dive deep, but anyone can play the game. You don't have to be a Star Trek fan. It helps, but if you have fans that are playing with you, that makes the process easier to learn the system. So our overarching topic today for the show is Star Trek fan labor. So we want to talk about all of the fans and what they're doing and creating content where they love and how they love it. So thank you, ELH. You're like a master at doing that. You're very prolific. You've created a number of modules on your Patreon. And I just want to say I'm impressed, and I've been on you're in your game. I can't remember when I joined. I think it was in the fall last year, but time has flown. So with that being said, let's get into building a community. So we talked a little bit about our Star Trek adventures on Reddit. And that subreddit seems to be a lot of like, oh, look at this new thing that I made, or I'm looking for players. So what do you find mostly are your posts in your subreddit?
So most of the posts are, like you said, like, hey, a new book has come out, or hey, I'm compiling a bunch of resources. But other than that, we usually get, as you said, looking for party, looking for group. The main one outside of that is like help and advice, where, hey, I have a question about the rules, or hey, I'm thinking about doing X. Has anyone else done X? And did you do Y, kind of a thing? It's pretty much what I kind of hold other communities to. And I don't know, again, if that's my perfectionist side, but when I go into a new role-playing community, I sort of look at the subreddit and go, how do I make the subreddit sort of to the same standard that I hold my own subreddit to, kind of a thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you got full control or full access to the sub, how did you go about building the community? Did you find people like came to you, gravitated towards the subreddit, or did you advertise?
So I did do a few posts on like the main Star Trek subreddit. But honestly, most of our traffic has either come from Twitter or it's come from Modiphius itself. And Modiphius is the publisher of Star Trek Adventures.
Right.
They do list us as the subreddit for the game. We're not official or anything, but we are listed, which definitely helps.
Yeah, especially when you have people who are RPing, like especially TTRPGs or regular RPGs, like Reddit is very, very commonly used in that crowd. So if you say, here's a forum where you can go and ask questions, it's going to be super helpful for new players.
I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut off. So
No.
okay, so these communities, as we all know, and I know, anyone can create them, anyone can do whatever. So what is it that makes you official? Is it that you can just say you're official and spread the word like that? Because you basically, your community is the only one out there for this role playing, and so and even Modifius acknowledges that, but you're saying, well, we're not official. And then, like, for the show Star Trek Picard, uh, so on r/Picard, I pretty much say, well, that's the official subreddit. I mean, there's no criteria. It's not like you fill out any form or anything. So what makes you say that you're not official? Because if anyone is going to be official, it would be, the publisher of the game kind of says so.
And that's actually what it is Modifius does not hand out the official status, quote unquote, unless they have full creative control over the space. And that actually was a point of contention, I want to say 4 or 5 months ago, where I did have Modifius staff in the subreddit as moderators, but there was a falling out among the moderators. Long story short there, they ended up having to release a official, like, they had to do a little bit of PR work where they said, this is what an official site is, this is how you get to be official, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And I would assume
Policy.
also that CBS or Paramount, whichever division controls the license that gave Modifius the creative ability to create this game, they would have to have a say in a subreddit that represents Star Trek under a licensed work. In order to be the official subreddit of this official licensed work, you would have to have contacts with Paramount to get that status, because you're not just representing Modifius or a role-playing game at that point, you're representing Star Trek, and that could damage the brand if you could just say, hey, I'm licensed.
Yeah, and damage the pockets.
Yeah,
with the wallets.
Right.
And many of our listeners
You
might
know.
remember, 4 or 5 years ago, there was that big falling out with that project that won't be named, but when they tried to privatize their $1 million budget, they got off of crowdfunding. CBS stepped in and they basically did a blanket ban on unlicensed commercial works for I don't remember how long that was, but there were a couple of podcasts that I listened to that had to just destroy all of their branding
Really?
that they had as an unofficial podcast.
Mm-hmm.
CBS was just like, nope, you're done.
Yeah, I think
6 to 18 months in order for them to vet all of the users of the Star Trek brand for creative purposes, and say, okay, you guys can have this level of creative expression that won't be considered an infringement. And then we all have to have, this is not licensed, not endorsed by, disclaimers on all of those publications too.
So we'll know that we made it big when we get the cease and desist letter. I think
I keep saying it.
Yeah, I keep, because
It's an honor.
we're not, we must not be on their radar, but I think that's the goal, is when the lawyers start knocking on your door. And it's a shame that that's the goal there. That's a funny thing. But yeah, I was just curious as to what went into saying you're quote unquote official, besides just up and saying that you are. So okay.
The official,
yeah, voted best burger in the city, that kind of stuff. Yeah, so I actually was super curious about the whole crackdown of legality on the community, because I feel like Trek gets, and maybe it's just because I'm in the Trek community, but I feel like Star Trek gets really intense about this particular issue. So I looked up what exactly has to happen for you to be to skirt under the litigation threshold. So fan-made productions must be original stories and must be short. Actors must be amateurs. They can't be compensated. These are just a few of them. Crowdsource fundraising is permitted up to $50,000. Nothing more than that. Which seems, if you're doing something huge like those productions, those film productions that fans were doing, that's like nothing.
Yeah.
Especially when you have like Tim Russ involved.
Yeah.
If you're using props, they can't be bootleg props. You can't make them out of foam at home, I guess. So sounds like they just really wanted to limit things. But I mean, I get it, but at the same time, these are the people who are going to respect.
Well, what kind of props are you supposed to use?
They have to be they have to be official Star Trek merchandise,
which you can't get anywhere.
Everyone scalps it. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm old-fashioned, but those requirements sound.
Dag's like, look at all my things.
Look at those tribbles. That's what I was hearing? Jesus.
Just to be clear, this tribble officially licensed.
Oh,
this
okay.
tribble.
Okay, so one is officially licensed, one is not.
So Jay, when you edit this, put a censored bar in front of this one.
Blur it out. Yeah, for sure.
Right.
For sure. So, legalities aside, how do you go about recruiting and choosing your players? I know you talked about this a little bit back in the original, when you were originally a guest with us, but if you could just reiterate, like, how do you decide, this person would be a good fit for this spot on the ship, or I do want this player, and what qualities you look for in your selection?
Sure. So I take sort of a job application approach to the game, where I want to make sure, by making the player or potential player fill out an application, that one, they're not going to flake. They understand, hey, have you read to this? Are you okay to commit to a game at this time on this day, every so often, et cetera, et cetera. But then what I usually do for picking the players, once they get past that step of the application, is I take a look at three things. The first is whether or not they want to play a specific position. And it's funny because Watney, I think you initially had applied for just doctor. And
surprise Dag.
Yeah, I was gonna say. What I do is I sort of build a pseudo party based on candidates that I like. And that's sort of the second criteria, is I have a space where people can tell me about the potential character or a character they have played in the past. And I sort of use that to judge not so much writing ability, but the passion level for what they might bring to the game. Okay. And the third thing I look for is actually something I do in the interview that I do. So there's three steps. There's the application, there's the interview with me, and then you're in the game. What I do during the interview is kind of like what we're doing now. We have a conversation, we talk about whatever, and I see if they're sociable. I see if they have obviously a proper microphone. They have microphone etiquette. They're not like coughing into the mic or things like that.
Right.
But really, once you assemble that sort of pseudo party, you start inviting people and you say, hey, do you want to play this position? Or, hey, do you think you could do this position? And that's kind of what I did with Watney, is I had everything but a captain. And I thought to myself, well, Watney is I'm not going to do the Ferengi, female.
Human. Yes.
Yeah, but Watney's a woman. And I thought, I haven't had a woman captain yet. I wonder if I can convince her to do it. And as you can tell, I managed to convince her. And I think she's doing a lovely job.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, it's definitely a switch. I'm not used to being so like in the forefront. I like to have a more sciencey role, but I think it's been good for me so far as a player.
You experience any pushback on that? Just again, with not only being a female, but in this game, you're the captain, so you're in charge.
Are you asking me?
Yes, I'm asking the only female in the room right now who's the captain of the.
No. No, I haven't. gotten pushback. Not that I can recognize, because sometimes it's very overt and then sometimes it's more subtle when this kind of stuff happens, and it's a longer kind of experience. It happens over time. So I am happy to say that I haven't received any kind of pushback so far.
Yeah,
Okay.
within the player group, we have we forged a really quick dynamic, in my opinion, as somebody who came in like 4 or 5 episodes later. ELH will end the game and we'll stay on for an extra half hour, 40 minutes, just talking about where we want our characters to go after this. And we'll crack jokes and we'll share memes. And I mean, it's a very cool group to be a part of. And I've never once sensed any idea that anybody was unhappy with the way Watney is a captain. I don't know if you've gotten any flack on Twitter or any other social media, but I am absolutely sure that you would have shared it with us if that was the case. Mostly
to get a laugh out of it. I definitely had a few on Ophion that I shared and we had a laugh about, but no, nothing of the sort for Fenrir so far.
Cool.
Yeah, we consistently have a decent amount of views.
Between 60 and 100?
Yeah, and there was one night where it got almost up to 200.
Yeah,
and I was like,
cool.
I'm actually sweating.
Wow.
Like,
No pressure.
I'm nervous. I'm getting like
No
stage
pressure.
anxiety. What do I want to do? Do I want to engage or do I want to go impulse? Like, I don't. Yeah. Which that's been its own experience on its own, is learning how to captain, and like also watching references. Like, I've started rewatching TNG, and I think that that's kind of helping me with getting into the headspace. I'm a huge Voyager fan, so obviously I love Janeway. But I do remember someone in the chat on Twitch said something like, "How very Janeway of you," or something one night, and I was like, "I'll take that as a compliment."
That's a compliment.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I kind of want to talk about also like different types of content, because we discussed obviously a lot so far. We've talked about like the role-playing aspect of fan creation, but there is obviously like so many different areas that you could get into if you love Star Trek and you're looking to like put your own spin on it, tell your own story in the universe. There's writing communities on Reddit and Discord. You can create short stories, or you can role play in text form, not just on Twitch with video in person with other people. There's of course podcasting like we're doing right now. Gifing, of course. Big J knows all about this. Now, I'm not a good giffer
yet.
Well, at least you pronounced it.
I've made 2 gifs.
you pronounced it correctly. That right there made me happy. So
we are gifting, not peanut buttering.
Right. Yes.
We're
Very
gonna
good.
get so much flack for this on Twitter.
It's a hard G, not a soft G.
So, Big J, can you tell me about why you love the content creation form and of gifting? Like, what drew you to that?
Well, it was, I saw it as something that was just a creative outlet, something to learn that was new and different. Started looking into some of the software that was used, where to post it, getting into the whole taking a funny scene from a movie or TV show and adding a hopefully witty title to it or something relatable. And that quickly went into Star Trek, because if there's anything that I can recall pretty quickly in almost any situation is a scene from a Star Trek episode or movie. So the amount of creative content that I was doing really shifted towards just about exclusively Star Trek. Well, that was the majority of it. And I don't even recall how I found Star Trek Gifs on Reddit. I think it was just one random day I thought, I wonder if there's such a place. And sure enough, there was. There were a few hundred subscribers, a couple moderators. The place really didn't have much of anything going on. It kind of suffered the same the malaise, like Mike mentioned, is that a community kind of gets to a part where no one's doing anything with it. No one's running it, not really engaged with it. So I started putting the content there, making these gifs, and getting some attention. It was nice and cool and all that. Started mentioning this community in other places, and after about a year of doing this, I asked the moderators. I said, "Do you need some help here? I really see some potential here, and would like to do something with this." So they added me on, and I went about trying to shape and build this community. Who would I want to have as moderators? And the other thing was the content, because you can only get so far being the only person every day posting. And so I would try to find other people that like doing that kind of work, and especially that was people that made good quality and made original things, and not just Tumblr GIF reposters. So I started meeting and coming across some people like that, and kind of the incentive was, I would love if you posted what you made here as well. And I'm also looking for help building this community, looking for moderators. Uh, and I would also go around and try to find if there was someone that posted something from Star Trek, would mention it to them, or would cross post that to the other community and then mention their name. So then they would get that ping and see this and like, oh, okay, wow, I didn't know that this place existed. And we finally got to a point after several months, redid the look and feel of the subreddit, of the community. I asked the original two moderators to step down, because in my opinion, I felt that if someone is coming here, because we wanted to build something here and we were starting to pick up more subscribers, and my whole thought was, okay, you guys are obviously like not only done with this community, but with the site as a whole. They weren't really active altogether. Certainly weren't doing anything with the community behind the scenes. It was just basically completely hands off. So I'm thinking, well, if someone's going to come visit, the first thing they're going to do, at least I don't know if anyone else besides me does this, but look at the moderators, look at the leaders of the community and see, are they actually active? Do they actually participate? And people go there and they see that, well, this guy hasn't posted anything in 6 months. This guy hasn't done anything in a couple years. How's that going to look? So yeah, I asked him, said, hey, what do you think about me just taking over and leading this? And the first thing I thought was, I remember thinking that night, I'm going to wake up and see that I was booted, because I asked to take over, and it was it was getting attention. I'm sure they wanted to squat on it. So yeah, I fully expected that you have been dismissed for wanting to actually run this place, but no, they both stepped down. So I was like, okay, wow, this place is mine now.
That's an opportunity.
And fast forward to today, we have 62,000 subscribers, and we've got every month we have the birthdays, where I list the birthdays of cast members, notable cast members, and someone will, we encourage someone to make a GIF of that person on that day. Battles where we have competitions, community engagement. So that was the big thing. The big thing was, if we're going to grow this place, I'd like to have something that engages the community, keeps them interested, and keeps them coming back for more. And that's really worked. And I've met great people. There are great people that I've met doing that. Dag and Watney, of course. And ELH, yeah, another guy who's part of our podcast group, Murph. And so and we have a Discord. So
Tato.
Yeah, right, Tato. There's just so many awesome people that I've met through this and running and building this thing. So it started as a hobby and then turned into I've got this passion for Star Trek, so why not mix the two?
Well, and I think those Friday night hangouts that happen in the Discord are a real cool draw for the more social
Yes.
people who go into that group. I'm sure people who go into that group, they find you through Reddit. Reddit has that big extrovert introvert dynamic. You've got a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people who don't participate, but they enjoy the content. People who participate in the content, but they are reluctant to be social in that live real time aspect. And then people like me who, sort of thrive on that real time enjoyment. And I tell you what, those Friday night hangouts really were, and continue to be, um, something that I look forward to every single week,
Every
along
week.
with Tuesdays, now being the Fenrir game. My work life balance has really improved, and the Tuesday night game breaks my work week up in a way that I never thought possible. So I'm not stressing all the way until Friday anymore. It's get through Monday, get through Tuesday, and reset Wednesday,
Mm-hmm.
Thursday, Friday. Um, and so yeah, the mental health opportunities for me are amazing here.
Yeah, getting that like engagement with other very passionate Trek
Oh
fans,
yeah.
and people who like maybe are drawn to one form or the other of storytelling. I personally am a big writer,
Mm-hmm.
so that's where I love to pour my like creativity into, but it helps to have a network of people that also like to enjoy adding on to the Trek we already have. So,
When you find
and I
people
know
that you have a common interest with, because and Mike, maybe you can share some experience with that. But I have found that and I've been told many times in my travels in podcasting is that the problem with Star Trek on Reddit is that it's not popular even there outside of the Star Trek community. It's not mainstream. I mean, every new show that comes out is hot with communities, memes, whatever it is. Game of Thrones, boom. The Mandalorian, huge. This Tiger Guy on Netflix thing,
Tiger King.
Tiger King, boom, immediately. And it's just like anything and everything can instantly be an overnight sensation. But when it comes to Star Trek, you can just forget about it. And
I mean, I definitely philosophically disagree with that because Trek is like all those other fandoms, they're kind of flash in the pan. The Trek has a very long history
mm-hmm,
of storytelling in characters, philosophy. And maybe that's not as attractive as like flying dragons, and I can't really argue against that. But for some
mm-hmm,
people, the Enterprise is like as good. And
right.
you find Star Trek references all over media. I mean, I watched Space Jam the other night.
Uh-huh.
And at the very end, there's a guy that was like, wow, that looks like something out of Star Trek. Like
Mm-hmm.
you find Star Trek everywhere because it's always been around. So I disagree with that. But anyway, go ahead, Big
No,
J.
that's great. And what I like about it is we've brought each other out of the closet. We brought each other out of the Star Trek closet where you can be that entry point of like Watney, you like writing. I like the creative and video editing thing. Dag I mean, he's amazing when it comes to his knowledge and trivia of Star Trek. Mike, you love the role playing bit. And so what we've been able to do is have that creative outlet for people to be able to do that. And going back to the job interview that you have, Mike, for your thing. So it sounds like you take it pretty seriously, which is awesome. I didn't know that, and it makes sense. You don't want just any Yahoo jumping in. You care about your product. You care about what you're doing, and you care about it being presentable. And that's huge. It's you do have these requirements, like you've got to have decent audio equipment. It can't sound like a hot mess when you're on. You can't mouth breathe into the microphone or sneezing into it, or having people moving furniture behind you, et cetera, et cetera. And also, and I've seen your stuff, and it sounds like you also have to not be camera shy. Like my format is, I have these insets of the videos of you. If you're the kind of person that's like, well, I've got my code name, but I don't like to be on camera. I'll just talk. Sorry. Has that been difficult or easy for you to maintain?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. And just as a quick aside, what I'm hearing is I need to apparently have dragons on Fenrir, but we'll talk about that later.
Oh yeah, give me that holodeck episode. I'm ready.
Holodeck episode. We have a chthonic deity as an ambassador. We can have a dragon, no problem.
We'll figure something out. Anyway, actually, my very first game, the Arcadia game, and even the Ophion game, were simply voice only. We didn't actually do the whole camera thing. It's really only Fenrir that has started to be that visual format.
Mm-hmm.
And that's partly because, sort of as a background story, I was planning to run a vampire game, a Vampire the Masquerade game. Because again, I'm crazy. I run way too many games. But
you're too
part
busy.
Part of that running a vampire game was I had to pay for Zoom, which if you're not familiar, and I apologize for the dog, if you're not familiar with Zoom, it's a really great service. It makes things like this very easy.
Oh yeah.
Especially for streaming. But it was one of those things where I was paying $15 a month, and I thought to myself, why not use this for Star Trek too? It's been a while since I've run a game. Let's try and see if I can get enough people. And the rest is history. We're episode 16 this coming
Season
Tuesday?
2. Yeah. Oh, so you're saying that the Fenrir is the first game with video?
Yep.
Oh,
Cool.
awesome.
We're pioneers.
What made you change that to go to that the video part of it?
I'd like to say it's more a Twitch thing where, sure, you have people that get like 3,000 views and they're just showing the Roll20 overlay. But again, it sort of speaks to my perfectionist nature where I personally like, say, the Critical Role format, where you see the players, you see their reactions in real time, and you can sort of play off of that. And there have been instances during play where, as you tell, I'm very animated with my hands sometimes, and it makes it easy to explain as opposed to saying, it's X is here or X is there. I can literally go X is here, Y is here, and use that visual medium.
I think it's more engaging that way, honestly, because and that was the thing that I thought was a big bonus when I met Dag and Watney, was that I kept thinking to myself, one of these days I would really like to get away from the audio only thing, because so many podcasters are doing the video, which is cool. It's just that unfortunately, what I ran into was essentially the other co-host did not want to be on. It's this whole I don't want you to see my face kind of thing, and I'll just do audio only. Yeah, you're right. It does. But then when we started doing Beyond Trek podcast, we started out kind of the same way. And then one day I think we just got to talking about doing YouTube. And well, for me, that came from pressure from my son, Nacho. He also does some of the podcasts with us, and he kept saying, Dad, you should do YouTube. Dad, you should do YouTube. And I'm just like, I don't know. I don't want to do that. But then I sat down and I talked to Dag and Watney. I said, okay, what do you guys think about us showing our faces and doing videos and doing something that's more engaging? And we all said, yeah, sure. Why not? I mean, Watney's cute. Dag is handsome. I've got a face for radio, and but I'm okay with it. Well, no, my parents say I'm handsome.
I think the word we're looking for is that we are all passionate about Star Trek, and that passion combined with the personality types that are good, that are just cool with a format of getting that passion out there, whether it's audio or video. It took a while for us to find people who met the criteria to passionate about Star Trek, okay with being on radio, okay with being on video, and
people who are
together.
Also committed to
the project. We're on chat daily. We're connecting back and forth. We're talking about episode ideas. We're we're editing with each other, and we're proofreading or proof viewing each other's content. We're recording stuff for some of the other productions. I mean, this isn't just we get together every once a week and talk about a thing. We're really active in our communities, and coming together for this is a very anticipated regular event.
Yeah, it's easy for us
Yeah.
because we want to be here. We want to make that time.
And we're in the middle of a pandemic and stuck at home. So
Right.
Well, we also are very committed people.
For
you
anyone
know,
that's in the future listening to this, yes, it's 2020. We're in the middle of a pandemic. And can someone tell me why Discord has decided to do this thing where there's this green light up bar whenever you're talking? Because that's in the corner of my eye. That's bothering me. I don't think I've ever noticed that before. What is that crap?
green light up bar.
They
around
always update it.
Oh, is that another?
Stuff,
Oh, Jesus.
So that's a Zoom thing too. So.
Oh, so yeah, they decided, well, let's be like Zoom. And I completely forget the point I was trying to make when I was asking Mike. So sorry, I was trying to land the plane and I ended up in the Bermuda Triangle. Oh no!
Well,
I know what it was.
Holding
on to his. He wanted to, make a video. That was what we were talking about. Was you like to be more animated now? Did you have any difficulties with your players or any recurring players saying, okay, well, that's a deal breaker, seeing me on video?
Actually, even though we didn't do the whole visual medium, I still had past players that were like, yeah, I don't mind turning on a webcam, or hey, if you do webcam, I'm going to have to go out and get something fancy, but I don't mind doing so. And it was one of those things where really I ended up getting a lot of applicants that were past players, and it was hard. Again, sort of that job application where I had to make tough decisions of who got in and who didn't.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And I know that you like to, you've said before that you like to get new players in on games when you have new ones, because when you get people past that threshold and then they understand the system, then they're more likely to DM, and then that grows the community even more. So I can imagine it's hard because you have some really great players from other games and some great regulars. That's actually what I wanted to ask you about, was like, I'm not sure if Twitch provides this, but do you know like your demographic for your audiences, or and do you have any regulars that stop by that aren't players?
I do, and we have this lovely thing known as Nightbot that usually gives me demographics. Let's see if I can pull them up real quick here.
This stuff fascinates me because my day job is as a digital advertiser. So,
and I'm a stats junkie. So,
yeah.
Well, you want to make
give me those analytics.
Right. Well, you want to make sure you're talking to the right audience, and that you're not gearing towards the incorrect.
Somehow my Star Trek RP is being favored by 90-year-old geriatrics at this one convalescent home in Michigan. All right.
Yeah, all right. They like role playing.
Well, I can give you the easy stats. Of course, we're most popular in the United States, which is no-brainer there. We usually have, at least this is what Twitch is saying. Twitch is saying my average viewer is 63. And they usually listen for about 75% of the session. The age group is about what you would expect. It ranges primarily from 16 to 28, which means we are sort of at the younger crowd, but that makes sense because a lot of people are getting into role playing from shows like Critical Role, things like Shield of Tomorrow, et cetera, et cetera.
And Twitch itself, as being an online platform, automatically selects for a younger generation.
Yes. They're not geared towards the boomers. Sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm just looking at regulars here. The problem is that some of my regulars are either VIPs or they're mods, so they don't really count.
That's fair.
They're supposed to be there.
That's fair.
Right.
I know we do have that one bit bomber on our stream.
I don't know who it is. I have a sneaking suspicion of who it is, but I'm going to keep that one to myself. But
what's a bit bomber?
So Twitch has these things called bits, which are basically a way to tip the streamer. And 100% of the bits go to the streamer. So for example, if you have 100 bits, that's $1. Well, we have an anonymous person who comes into my channels on Tuesdays and just out of the blue, usually when I'm in the middle of a monologue, goes, here's $30 or here's $50. And I think you see it sometimes on the video where I look over here and I'm like, what?
Right.
Or you just straight up say, I will find you.
Oh no, it is my mission. I
have
find
words. Good words.
But isn't that a good thing? We're right. Okay. I was about to say, I just want to talk. I just want to talk.
I mean, the guy has done enough bits that I honestly feel like I need to like send him Christmas cards and,
Yeah, we need to like get a Fenrir like group commission. We can all sign it. Then we send it to him. I know. I thought about doing it. I know. I thought about it. But
we could call that guy who did our stuff for that other RP we were in.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll do a big spread, but I'd like to have the crew like get up like the Power Rangers, That'd be sweet. Also, Dag, I definitely don't want to leave out Starfleeters. Do you want to talk about that?
I can talk about that.
You're the head honcho.
So back in September 2019, my partner Lade has these friends who are all about TikTok. I have no idea what it is. And so it kind of becomes, a thing. I look into it. I'm seeing what these videos are. And within a day of me being on TikTok, I saw somebody I had already discovered a role-playing group, cosplay role-playing group called the Hogwarts Professors, which is basically just a bunch of people who had filmed these videos of them as if they were Hogwarts professors, the lesser known ones that you don't get to see behind the scenes. And that was just huge across the platform. And somebody else had just posted a thing about, hey, there's these Hogwarts professors. What about these, Lord of the Rings enthusiast Middle Earthers? And my immediate first thought was, I could do a Star Trek thing here. And so within 2 or 3 days of me even just downloading the app to see what it was, I put the uniform on, and I did a full green screen setup video for Starfleeters, me sitting on the bridge of the Defiant. And within a month, I had 30 people on a Discord and 10,000 views on just that one video.
Oh my, wow.
And we were doing, we were just doing our own thing. Some people were being funny. Some people were being serious. Some people were trying to, there's a feature on TikTok that allows you to duet people. So if there's an audio that you can use that has 2 parts to it, you can perform one part and somebody can duet it and perform the other part. So people are doing audio clips from Star Trek, and we're all sort of just getting together. And I just grabbed everybody into a Discord server for Starfleeters. And now I think we're at retention at like 22 or 23 active players. I play the Fleet Admiral, Admiral Valigant. And basically he's like a better NPC. I do all the plot lines and stuff like that, and I encourage the captains of the ships under that character to also create their own plot lines. Lade got into it as a Romulan exchange officer on board the most active ship, the Borealis. And in the last 6 months, they have forged some really awesome creative ideas. And it's really cool sometimes. As a mod, I've got access to all of the ship channels, because the ship channels are segregated by ship roles in the Discord. So if you're not on that ship, you don't get to be part of that adventure. And it's really cool in their out of character channels to see them going, what's our next adventure going to be like? And within the span of a couple of days, they're hashing back and forth, and this creative process is taking place, and they're going places. They're literally going places I boldly never would have gone before. So it's been inspiring to me as a content creator. It's been inspiring to me as a fan of the franchise. And it has really been like a rocket boost for me to be a participant in this podcast, in Mike's game, and in all the other ways that I try to interact with the fan communities through all of our social media. Um, it's absolutely crazy. In the last 6 months, the Starfleeters tag that I originated has over 2 million views. I personally have over 2,000 followers. I think we have grabbed people who have 10,000, 15,000 followers who are big Star Trek fans and maybe were looking for the opportunity, but they were doing their own thing, saw us, direct messaged me, and then they joined the server. So I have people that I was like, wow, your stuff is so cool, who are knocking on my door going, wow, your stuff is so cool. And that's a weird feeling to have.
Yeah.
But
Super cool.
yeah, Trek fandom is alive. It's out there, and even if it seems niche in certain communities, um, Trek, the meaning of Trek at its core, can bring people together in a way where we're just cool with diversity and an understanding that everybody is different, and that's cool. It's to be celebrated. It lives up to Gene Roddenberry's message. um, and I'm okay with that being a niche group right now. And if it takes the mainstream and people come aboard, the more the merrier.
Hmm.
But it was just cool to find these people and bring them together and have friends now who I did not have 6 months ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Trek will hide in the corners of like platforms, within almost every platform you can find like Trekkers,
And
Trekkies,
you
whatever
know,
you like to designate yourself as.
We're everywhere.
my
You just don't know
my
it.
video Star Trek
Yeah.
community, ELH's video role playing community, our podcast community. I mean, Watney, did you want to talk about the RP that you were a moderator of and how I met you?
Sure. So I was a moderator on the subreddit Trek RP for probably 2 years. I joined right as it was getting. I feel like all of our stories are kind of like I joined while it was like just barely getting off the ground, and I was like, wow, I love this. I had been writing on a Mass Effect subreddit for a long time. And this was when Reddit roleplay was like huge. You had like multiple subreddits for different fandom, or the same fandom would have like 3 or 4 subreddits with different settings um, that you could like go in and play different characters. So I was in a Mass Effect group for a long time. And then I discovered Trek RP, which had just been launched. Joined the Discord, and it was pretty bare at the time, but we did some advertising. I became a mod, and my first character on Trek RP was Jen Watney, Dr. Jen Watney. She's the chief medical officer for a long time there. So I brought her on and became a moderator. And I really wanted to grow the community. And so I started advertising on other subreddits that are meant for roleplay advertising, like roleplay for Reddit, other Star Trek communities, things like that. Consistent advertising and um, really just being open to answering questions when people respond to those posts, letting them know, like, yeah, we're here. We can bend whichever way you need to. We'll make it work if you have a character idea. Because Trek RP had um, an application process as well. So we had like a short form uh, application that you had to fill out with like your character's name, their age, what race they were, what their position was, their department, and then some of the backstory as well. So there was kind of a gatekeeper there just to keep out people who would contribute like a sentence to a post, because a lot of our players were used to quality text post RP. And a lot of people might know that as literate RP, where you're responding to people in sometimes a couple paragraphs. And that's how I personally enjoy it, and that's what our membership got used to. So I was there for 2.5 years. And then I joined the Star Trek Gifs community. And while I'm not a giffer, like my attention just kind of shifted over. And I felt like my characters had kind of done the arcs that they needed to. And I was satisfied with my experience there. And I wanted to work on other projects. And here I am sitting in this chair talking to you guys.
Yeah, I
So.
joined like 3 months after you did. You approved my first character, which was also a hologram. It was the ELH
Yeah.
that ship.
Dag has a style. He's into holograms and androids, and I'm into medical stuff.
And
that's not obvious. Yeah.
Those are the kind of stories I like. Is like how everyone came together, because after a while you kind of forget. I was trying to think. Well, okay, wait a minute. So we're here right now, but what chain of events got it to where we're sitting here? And I trying to remember back. Well, I remembered when I first came across you guys, but it's like that was because of this, and this led into people that have all these different angles of the fandom that they like to express. And here's the thing that I really want to get from all of you, because I think this will be pretty interesting. And Mike, since you're our guest, why don't you lead off? But in regards to building your community, what would you say has been good in regards to good and supportive, and what has been pushback or not good or unsupportive? You could tell us about the different platforms, the people, different communities, whatever it may be.
I can definitely speak to a negative, because I think there was even a negative when we did the initial episode that I was on, where we had 10th Fleet drama. But I wouldn't speak to that so much as the whole Modifius thing I mentioned earlier. So as I said, there was the head of RPG development at Modifius, Sam Webb, and the line editor, now line manager for Star Trek Adventures, Jim Johnson. They were both on the subreddit as moderators. And for the longest time, they didn't really do anything. They just were sort of there. And then, more or less, yeah.
Okay.
But one day, literally out of the blue, Jim Johnson says, "Hey, I think we should unban the 10th Fleet." And I'm like, no, they're still racist, xenophobic, et cetera, people that don't need a microphone. And this is probably a little too much information, and I'm sure Dag will have words about it, but they tried using IDIC as a weapon to say, hey, in the Trek spirit, we need to give these people a chance. Yeah, that was the reaction I did.
Well,
and
that sounds typical, because every single rightist and racist doesn't know anything about Star Trek can easily start quoting the links forged from the drumhead. They all know the
link forged.
Yes, they all know the drumhead speech word for word suddenly.
So I just, on my little tiny soapbox, and Mike, I'm going to give it back to you.
Sure.
My little tiny soapbox. IDIC only works if everybody involved values IDIC. And for those of you listening who don't know what IDIC is, it's infinite diversity and infinite combinations. If you value infinite diversity and infinite combinations, then you're going to be cool with it. But if you want to use it as a weapon, you're not cool with it. And it's not part of the spirit of Trek that I believe in. And I think that brings the Trek community together.
Oh, yeah. You get that. I'm not an asshole. You're the asshole. I'm not problematic. You're problematic.
Right.
It's just a diversion, distraction argument that people across the internet use, and Trek is no different. But anyway, Mike, go on.
No, and honestly, that was the most surprising thing, that this was the line editor, line manager for Star Trek Adventures using it as a weapon. And I literally, like, full stop after I finished facepalming, I'm like, is this really the person who's writing or editing Star Trek Adventures? Like, is this someone that deserves the notoriety? And it eventually got to the point where I'm like, look, I'm not going to tolerate it. Like, look, you can't use IDIC as a weapon. We're not unbanning the 10th. And Jim Johnson says, okay, I quit. And I was like, okay, no problem there. But then, and sort of circling back around to the official sort of conversation, we were, again, sort of the official, quote unquote, like it was in our subreddit bar. It was in, if you search us on Reddit, we were the official for STA. Again, out of the blue, Sam Webb, again, head of RPG development at Modifius, edits the subreddit completely to remove all mention of official, which was quite a number of edits. And that spawned like, hey, are you saying I can't moderate anymore? Are you saying we can't exist as a community anymore? Again, people who are supposed to be leaders doing very strange things. And I would say that that was the biggest negative that I had to think of.
Mm-hmm.
That does sound like a lot of drama.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have words on that, but I don't want to get into the weeds too much. But obviously not super acceptable from a humanistic perspective. But
I've internalized IDIC as like a personal core value, and I know I have very specific feelings about how that should be presented in the community. And there have been people who have challenged me to go, oh, that's a thing I didn't really think about. I should incorporate that into my view. And then there's people who try to, like you said, they try to use it as a weapon. They try to be like, well, you just aren't, valuing infinite diversity and infinite combinations. And I'm like, but look at you. You value one thing, and you're telling you're using something that I hold dear, that I hold dear, against me to try and get your way. And
they don't care.
I have to have a wall of defense there. It's like I said before, if you are somebody who values infinite diversity, infinite combinations, you will understand it, and you won't be able to use it as a weapon. And the people who don't value it, they know how to use it as a weapon.
Well said.
Yeah, I mean, they tried to, but I mean, the logic, show me the logic.
I know.
It's not there. I guess I can maybe speak a little bit to Trek RP in my experience. I'm definitely not affiliated with them now, but back in the day when we were kind of like in our boom time, there are obviously, in terms of writing and development and the character themselves, there's a lot of, and this is not a bad thing in general, but with the community we built, there's a lot of self-insert type characters within the Trek community. And I think that's totally fine. But if you're wanting to create a story and a narrative where there's conflict, which is what every story needs to be entertaining and for people to grab onto it, if you have a self-insert character that's basically an extension of you in the game, it's a lot more likely that you're going to take things personally because that character is an extension of yourself. And so it made me very uncomfortable to roleplay with characters who were clearly self-insert characters or wish fulfillment characters, because, I like to create conflict. I like to, be that character. Some of my characters are a lot nicer, but a lot of mine aren't. And I like to create that drama. And so that's a big obstacle I had, was kind of just like pushing back a little bit on the self-insert aspect of some people's role play, because I don't want to piss them off in real life. I don't want them to come to me and say, I can't believe your character did this to mine. And I'm like, well, that's the story. Like, why doesn't your character just react to it? Like, it's not really a problem to me. So
They take it personal?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Because the communities, maybe not our podcast, or maybe not the Fenrir where you're showing your face, but a lot of communities where you don't have to do that, people will hide and they will project a character that, and this is strictly for role play, but they'll project a character that they wish they could be. Right. And so when that character is slighted, when that character is insulted, when that character is injured, they take that personally because that's an extension of themselves. So yeah, I've had a lot of experiences where, people will just straight up leave, or they'll be in my DMs upset with me because
What?
my character has done
Or they
something.
ghost.
Are they what?
They ghost. They just
They ghost. They just poof. They disappear. So
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to
um,
have that kind of environment. I remember walking on eggshells around various obstacles because you want to
mhm.
tell a story. And these people, they want to be a part of the story, but they don't really want to participate in it.
Yeah, there's like the collaborative storytelling that I really enjoy, which is not necessarily reactive RP, which I know Dag and I get along very well in this aspect where we are collaborative storytellers. So we'll say, here's where we're at. Here's what the scene I'd like to do. How can your character feasibly be in this scene with mine? And here's where do you think they would end up? Like, and then we'll leave the details out, but we'll have the overarching arc. And then you role play through that. So there is expectation. You can subvert expectations in that environment, but it's a lot more controlled. I find that people who are self-inserting typically do not like to plan out like that, and they like to just be very one-sided with things. So that was my biggest obstacle, I think, in Trek RP was that kind of mentality.
Yeah.
So
Um, and so I would have to say, at least from my experience, uh, with leading a growing content creation community, GIF community, and with podcast, uh, there's like two avenues of pluses and minuses there. Um, and this part really matches up with several months ago, and this was when we got the impetus to change to what we're doing now. So we sat down with a couple of guys with Fantastic Geek, and we got and they've got a podcast as well. They don't do just Star Trek; they do a lot of different things, and we got to talking about um, growing that podcast and where do you find your supportive audience and not. And one of the things they said is that they've gotten good response on Facebook uh, and basically anywhere but on Reddit. And I asked him, I said, let's talk about that a little bit. And they said that, well, basically, all things considered equal, the one place where you're going to find the least support and the least amount of enthusiasm for your work will be on that community. And it's funny because that's true. If there is any place that's you're going to find that resistance of it's very siloed, very tribal, very siloed, that this is my piece of the community, and if you don't agree with my piece, then you can go screw off, kind of thing. And our this community, we've done well, but that doesn't mean that we want to help you do well, or to be successful. And that is true when it comes to, and I don't know if it's because on one side you've got social media where people are actual people, like Facebook, for example, and then on a site like Reddit, where it's more caricatures. People have these nicknames and these monikers, but I can tell you when it comes to whether it is the building of the podcast community or the building of the GIF community, that really coincided with what the guys at Fantastic Geek said, is that, yeah. And I think we all see that firsthand, is that the place where you're going to get the most pushback and the most trouble from people is likely going to be there, which is a shame, because you think, well, we're all on the same side for Star Trek, but you'll find out pretty quickly that that's not so much the case, not so much true. So it's definitely been an uphill battle, and I think part of that is just with the system of voting that they've got. You can post something that you've created or have done, and you get a downvote because someone doesn't like you from somewhere else where you said something that they didn't like. And then the lemmings all come in and say, oh wow, this person, let's pile in, there must be a reason. So it's very much, hey, I did my part. I got in with the crowd and either voted down or voted up this person. And I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of good people out there. It's just you definitely come across quite plenty that are not.
And I had a thought on that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
So I still go to 4chan, and I don't think that's a bad thing because, and this is going to maybe sound a little bit like propaganda, but 4chan is truly anonymous. Reddit, you have a moniker, you have upvotes, downvotes. You're pretty much anonymous except to the site owners on 4chan, which, and this is probably going to ruin the mystery. I sometimes get better feedback for adventures I'm thinking of running by going to 4chan and saying, hey, what do people think of this idea? Because the people replying aren't doing it to get upvotes. They're not doing it to further an agenda. Yeah. They're replying to you because they like your idea, or maybe they hate it and they tell you that, but they are constructively contributing most of the time to the idea you have. And I think it's a valuable space for that. Now, am I saying to go try and advertise a podcast there? No, they would be very unfavorable. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we would never hopefully try it.
No. I have no aspirations to go out to 4chan.
Yeah, but you're totally right. There's not like a bank that you have based on your virtue signaling and how you want to like people to perceive your comment, right? So you can be someone who farms negative karma, which there are people that do that, and they're gonna try and make negative comments. But if you like on 4chan, that doesn't exist. You're just a string of numbers. So that's a great point, actually. Reddit is an odd duck for sure. So right. I want to.
It's the only place where you could possibly say something that is absolutely true and factual, but if it's not what the hive mind is into at that point, then you're dismissed. You're done. You're going to be at negative 114 unless you just give up and delete your comment. Kind of
yeah. And I don't think the whole entirety of Trek fandom lives on Reddit either. I mean, so.
Oh, I hope not. Yeah.
That'd be very frustrating. Yeah. So I want to give Dag a chance to talk about his community and any issues he's had there, and then I kind of want to ask you some questions, ELH, about your world building. And then we have a Q&A and some trivia to get to, just so we don't run to 2 hours on this like
yes,
we did
please.
The finale. So
honestly, the hardest part for me as a new moderator, and I call myself new because I've had a couple of Discords in the past, but this is the first community that has actually been sort of built and established, and it looks to me regularly for guidance on the meta issues and storytelling. And the hardest part for me is really taking the initiative to enact a disciplinary action to a misbehaving member. I personally detest being the person that ruins somebody's day. They came to this community altruistically. They have contributed some really good content, but then their behavior takes on a repeated pattern of, or not even necessarily repeated. It only takes one unsavory post that elicits the ire of people who are decent enough to not engage but report it. And I have to take an action. And I learned very, very quickly that my action is not me versus this person. It is me standing up for the community to separate the community from an individual who is trying to harm it. Whether willingly or unwillingly, they have shared some content, either one big time or as a repeated measure. And it's just difficult for me to have the gumption to be like, all right, well, you're out.
Yeah.
But to mitigate that, I I take excessive snapshots of the content and I debate it with my moderators, and I put it into a full-on report, and we have a channel in the server that is specifically for these kinds of actions. And when a disciplinary action is taken, there's a public announcement board. We post it. We say this person was removed for violations of these rules. I don't go into detail because I don't want to slander that person.
Right.
But I also have a full action report that's in a channel that requires a specific role to view. And anybody can ask for that role for 24 hours. And they can go in and they can view the report, and they can go into a mod communication chat and say, well, I don't think this is right because of X, or thanks for doing this. I didn't even know this was happening. And then that report stays on the server. Anybody can see that report and give their commentary about why it may or may not have been a fair decision.
That's pretty
Um,
interesting.
Yeah,
I
it's
just
pretty unique too. I don't really see that in a whole lot of communities.
I just don't want anybody thinking that the mods are this old boys club, even though my other 3 mods are women. I don't want anybody thinking the mods are power hungry and just banning people who annoy us. I want them to understand that there's a history of violation that has been, looked through very meticulously. In some cases, I've had to look through 76 pages of chat logs
Wow.
to get content that began 76 pages ago and persisted. And why would it persist that long? Well, because I was counting on people in that chat to mitigate it, and it would mitigate. It would go up and down and up and down and up and down. But over time, it's just like, okay, look, the pattern is too much for me. I'm tired of it.
So you're being pretty obvious that you're trying to be transparent and show that we are not Reddit mods.
Right. Reddit mods might have a bad.
Hey, why did I get banned? 72-hour mute.
It's very much like I want anybody who accesses my server to have the privilege to be able to look at these records and voice their opinion. And if this person goes to bat for the person who was suspended or banned, and shows, hey, no, what you saw there, here's my chat log with this person out of character. We had a character arc. This thing, it was discussed between us. Then I can be like, oh, whoa, we made a bad call. That hasn't happened. And we've had a couple of members who we have had to separate ourselves from, for the benefit of the people remaining.
Yeah, it's definitely difficult when you have long-term problematic behavior that just skims the surface of
it's not
a
obvious
problem. But it's so easy to say. Yeah, it's so easy to ban. Like, I moderate a 1,500 person occult server. So you have people come in, and we have a gatekeeper, so you can't see the chat unless you fill out an intro.
Yep.
People will just spam and spam and spam, and that's so easy to take care of because it's just a ban. There's nothing. It doesn't even make me mad anymore. It's so easy to just ban somebody for that behavior. But when you have like someone ingrained in the community and they are being problematic, and it's been a long period of time, when you join a community, you get so excited to meet these other people, and like the cocaine phase is like in full effect in your brain, and you're like, wow, these friends are great and I love them so much, and I just want to hang out with them all the time. And then you like disagree, and then the conflict happens, and you realize you do not have the same conflict style. You don't even have compatible conflict styles, and you have to work that out. And sometimes people straight up leave. But if you are able to communicate and work it out, I think that's the key, is giving people a chance, but also towing the line of not letting yourself be walked all over, especially when you're administrating a community. So thank you, Dag. Appreciate your perspective as always. So now, ELH, I want to talk about the Sabine Expanse, because he's cracking his knuckles. Ready to go. So I know you worked up some imagery for us, so we'll edit that in so the audience can see. You can put it on my face. I don't care if you can't find a place for it. But so can you go into how you okay, so first of all, I guess my first question is the Sabine Expanse where all of your Star Trek adventure games take place, at or near?
It is where Ophion and Fenrir have taken place.
Okay.
My other games, Arcadia was the Shackleton Expanse, which the Shackleton Expanse is Modiphius's quote unquote playground, where it's on
Okay.
literally the other side of the galaxy from where the Sabine Expanse is.
Okay.
But I-13 is on the other side of Cardassian space. Dark Royal is in a custom setting. But I think where you're going with this is that the Sabine Expanse was an area of space where I was just looking at maps. And let me tell you, it's very hard to find consistent maps sometimes for Star Trek.
Oh, yeah.
But I was looking at a few maps, and what I noticed was kind of to the galactic west of Cardassian space was sort of this mystery zone where there wasn't really anything planned out, or I think one map had the Sheliak Corporation out there, and the Sheliak can live somewhere else. But I looked at that space and I'm like, we're close enough to the wormhole that if I need to bring in like DS9 characters, I could do that. Or, hey, if I want to bring in cameos, I could do that. But really the inspiration was I wanted to give players a space where they weren't beholden to past events or past canon, where they truly had a playground to sort of find their own story.
Okay. I love it. So do you have all of like the Sabine Expanse mapped out now, even stuff your players haven't explored? Or is it like a loose outline, maybe?
I would say it's half and half. There's maybe 2 or 3 things that aren't going to be on the graphic that the podcast will see. I can't say too much because of spoilers, but
I know. I'm not trying to get anything out of you, I promise.
No, you're fine. What I would say is that I definitely have a loose idea of where I want really important events to be. Like, let's take Pandora's Gate, for example, which is something I think really defines the Sabine Expanse and something that defined the Ophion game. Basically, you all are familiar with the Takan, the precursor race, et cetera, et cetera. If you're not, Memory Alpha, it's great stuff. But where I was going with this is I basically sat down one day and I thought to myself, what if there was a portal to another galaxy? And this was before I even got into STO. So this was, what if I gave the players an opportunity to explore a space where literally no human has gone before? And I said, all right, let's make a Takan-style stellar portal. But then you have to do the Trek thing where you're like, well, it can't all be good. How do you introduce conflict? And this is sort of spoilers for Ophion, but you'll find out very quickly anyway. On the other side of the portal, in the Andromeda Galaxy, there are 40 destroyed planet killers.
Whoa.
And Starfleet literally sat down, or I should say the players literally sat down and were like, do we tell people about this? Do we destroy the gate? Because if we leave it open, those are 40 planet killers. And if anyone gets their hands on one, we have a problem. And that sort of created the whole story arc there for a while in Ophion. And sort of like what's happening on Fenrir, you guys just had an arc, which is probably going to define where you guys go.
Mm-hmm.
I usually, and I think this is preempting a question, but I like sort of getting into the headspace of what major event do I want to have happen? And then how do I get from point A to point B in a way that the players will enjoy?
I love it. My head's spinning. Go ahead, Dag.
My heart stopped at 40 destroyed planet killers.
As someone who has DM'd games for Dungeons and Dragons 3.5, Dungeons and Dragons 5e, I have been a DM for LARP for all of the World of Darkness games, pre and post reboot for LARP. You have an uncanny knack for on-the-spot improvisation and creative allowance that
Power
really...
systems.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. For letting the players just get away with a bunch of technobabble bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
But also you balance that well with introducing urgency and some kind of compelling force that it keeps the players going. The players get what they want. The audience gets the drama. I really am in awe of the combination of those abilities wrapped up in you, and I think that's really awesome. And it's something that keeps me just drooling for Tuesday.
Well, that's what I like to hear, and thank you for the compliment. Sort of to reveal a little bit more behind the mask. Yeah. But to sort of reveal a little bit behind the mask, I'm actually autistic. Like, I am on the spectrum, and a lot of my growing up was, let's just say, not great. I missed a lot of social situations. I missed a lot of social cues, things like that. And really, it was Star Trek that sort of introduced me to, the human condition. And still to this day, Data is a huge inspiration. Brett Spiner is a huge inspiration for me. And it's one of those things where, ironically enough, I think my not so great upbringing was what contributed to the improvisation and the yes and method of GMing. Because I don't want to be, like we have said, I don't want to be that person that gets their idea shut down or their day ruined. I want to say, okay, I like that idea. How do we get to there? Or how do we do this in a way that isn't overpowering, keeps the other players involved, et cetera, et cetera.
Like shooting a hole in the bridge floor with a rail gun.
You did
Fine.
what?
Yeah,
Okay, Big J, you gotta watch, dude.
Yeah,
I'm
you're gonna have to watch
to.
the episode. There's a lot that goes into that decision.
Okay. It was awesome,
Yeah.
and it was like balanced because it almost killed the player. That
I
did
mean,
it.
Right.
So
what occasion brings you to the point where you're shooting a freaking railgun into the floor of the bridge?
Well, this one over here was maybe mind controlled. So
Oh,
you
Jay,
know
you remember the-
Bluegill.
yeah. Oh,
I had a subspace one of those in my brain, and a bad one too.
I am gonna have to watch
So.
this.
Mhm.
Well, and
Yeah,
now
I
that
gotta
we're-
say that reveal was just chef's kiss. So
Wow.
good.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
it was.
I still
it
love
was
Dag
like the
though.
most fun.
Dag with
Yeah.
the post-it note, I'm furious or I'm mad. I was like,
I'm so bad. Yeah. It's hard to surprise Dag. I'll say that. So kudos to you.
Yeah.
So, okay, cool. Yeah, I love to learn more about the world you've built, the expanse that you've claimed, you've charted out for your players in your games. So thanks for going into more detail on that.
Thanks, Mike.
I have 2 questions for you from our viewers.
okay.
So first question is from Shizno,
I should know.
who you know and love. What do you do to get into the headspace to come up with the big stories you've made for RPG to make them drive through? I think that was what he was saying. So how do you get into the headspace to like come up with these stories?
Gotcha. Well, what I would say is that, like any good GM, you sort of pick and choose elements from other media that you like. So maybe I'll be watching a TV show and I say, hey, what that character did was neat. What if I took that and maybe combined it with this character over here doing this action? And it sort of just compounds. And like it could be the most innocent or insignificant sort of speck that just sort of starts rolling downhill and gathering sort of like a snowball effect.
Mm-hmm.
And really, to get into the headspace of it, I would say that it really depends on, how do I put this in a not so pragmatic way? Because I don't want to come across as a pretentious person, though I probably do anyway.
No, you don't. Just say it. Let it
We
all
don't
out.
mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I sort of take a look at players and I think, how do I challenge players?
Mhm.
And I like picking on players. Like I picked on Watney quite a bit, and I picked on Dag for a little bit. Because as Watney said, drama is interesting. And if you do that correctly, your players will create their own drama, which then as the GM, you can just sort of go, well, I'll be here for the next 2 hours when any of you guys are done talking and shooting
You
each
guys
other.
do all the work.
It honestly, like Fenrir has been one of the most revitalizing things for my game mastering career because of how involved and how active you guys are with each other. And I did
Yeah.
want to slip that in because I love the memes. The memes I look forward to at the end of every session.
Oh yeah, I'm into
But
it.
the answer to the question, more to the point, basically, Shizno, what I do is I think about a player. I think, how do I keep them involved? And then how do I keep the other players involved? And then I sort of sit there at 1 a.m. in my bed thinking, how do I do it? And ideas snowball from there.
Awesome. Yeah. I love it because you're taking into consideration not like, well, I want this to happen. You're saying, how can I make it fun for this core group of people who have already talked amongst themselves and have had their characters have backstories that are interlinked, which when you like poke that bear can release, like you said, all the drama and everyone shooting each other and all that fun stuff. So awesome.
Sounds like fun to me.
It is fun. It is fun, Big J. So the last question is, with so many Jensens out there, will we find Jensen Prime? And if so, why?
All right, so I have to explain Jensen. So Jensen was a joke character on Ophion, who was literally the hypochondriac Barkley style character. And it sort of became a running gag of mine to include a Jensen-like character in every single game I ran. Didn't matter if it was Star Trek, didn't matter if it was Dungeons & Dragons. There's even a Nosferatu running around with Jensen's face and name. So Jensen has sort of become my running gag where, how do I make Jensen interesting this time? And Jensen Prime, quote unquote, if I know who asked this question, I think I know where you're asking. Jensen Prime spawned back on the Avenger game. And that is what I would say. And if you're interested in all that, go check out Avenger. It's on my YouTube.
I'll have to do that. Yeah, I need to go back and like watch the reference stuff. But I think Jensen is so interesting because it's one of those characters where the GM can like push things along if he needs to. He's basically like the thumb of God, just like destroying things and creating. He's like the Merry and Pippin, knocking helmets and steel armor down a well and waking a huge monster. It's like that kind of character. And
or in your case, deliberately knocking out the captain to save the whole
that was
ship.
so funny. So Bree was like, I know Susmana, I can take out this guy. And then like Jensen just decks her. And then I was like, okay, fine. That's what we roll for, I guess. So, yeah. Well, that's it for the questions. Thank you again for coming on the show. And I think we're going to move to Dag with some trivia. Are you ready?
Trivia time.
I'm good with some trivia. This is general trivia, no specific focus. Mike, as you are the guest, you automatically get first dibs to answer the question or pass.
Oh.
Okay.
If you pass, it goes to Watney or Jay, and between the two of them, whichever answers first gets the point.
Okay.
Okay.
There's going to be 10 or 15 questions, or whenever I start seeing facial expressions being like, why are we still doing this? But without further ado, let us begin. Who did Chekhov describe as a genetically engineered criminal?
Wasn't that Khan?
It was Khan. Good job.
It's like the one I probably will know.
Where
I'm not good at trivia.
on Earth did James Tiberius Kirk grow up?
Iowa. Jesus.
You don't get to answer.
You don't get to
first.
answer
I
until
don't?
yeah.
Oh,
He gets to
sorry.
play
I thought that was
pass.
just the
You're
first
fine.
question.
You're fine. I was going to guess Kansas for some reason.
But Jay did say Iowa, and that is the correct term.
Sorry, I don't know how to play this game.
You're
correctly.
fine.
That's okay.
Rules exist for a reason. I'm kidding.
What
We are a society.
what was the name of the actor who originated the role of Star Trek's first captain?
I mean, the first captain was technically Pike,
Uh-huh.
but I don't remember the actor's name off the top of my head. Because in the pilot, it was definitely Pike, not Kirk.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'm going to have to pass because the name is escaping me.
Jay or Watney?
It was Jeffrey
His
Hunter.
name's.
It was Jeffrey Hunter.
I was gonna say Mr. Cutie.
Oh,
I would have accepted that.
I know. Good job, Big J.
Thank you.
All right. Which character joined the show in its second season of the original series?
Okay, the original series. Now I'm trying to think through original series who that might have been. I'm gonna have to pass on that one. My original series knowledge is failing me.
That's okay. Jay or Watney?
Was it one of the medical people?
It was not.
Okay, never mind.
Jay?
Chekhov.
It was Chekhov.
I always thought he was there from Square One.
No, they
No.
brought him on because at that time in the 60s, the monkeys were insanely popular, and especially Davy Jones. And they wanted to get their own Davy Jones, and that was why Walter Koenig came in. He was supposed to be the young heartthrob, and he had the ridiculous hair. Basically, it was Davy Jones on the Enterprise was Chekhov.
And I thought I was the trivia master.
I see.
My sister endearingly refers to Davy Jones as Coconut Head.
Right. Yep.
Chekhov.
I take personal offense to this, Captain.
All right. So another name.
Mm-hmm.
What was the name of the saintly social worker Kirk had to let die in the original series episode, The City on the Edge?
Edge of Tomorrow or Forever. I'm thinking Julie, but that doesn't sound right in my head. No, I'm gonna have to pass on that one too.
I don't know.
Jay.
Edith Keeler.
It was Edith.
You.
Keeler. For a bonus point, who played her?
Oh, don't tell me. I can
3,
see her face.
2, 1. Time's up.
Who?
And it's Joan Collins
Oh, that's right. I could
from
not.
Dynasty fame.
God dang it, Joan Collins.
Just out of curiosity, I'll ask a clarifying question of Mike. What series do you prefer? You like movies, Next Generation?
TNG mostly, yeah. Because again, Data.
Data.
Right. Okay. So Data. I'm going through my list here and realize that I went on a TOS binge.
Whoopsie.
You're watching
Ah.
TOS again.
Huh?
You're watching TOS. That's why.
am. I'm in the middle of the second season. Name 2 games on any Enterprise that are favorites of the crew. 2 like recreational games.
Well, Parisi Squares, technically,
That's
because we
one.
always hear about Parisi Squares. And then if we want to include Dabo, we can, but I feel like that's a low-hanging fruit.
It is a low-hanging fruit, but I will accept it. Other acceptable answers would have been Jay or
4D
Watney.
chess.
I was going to say 3D
Spring
chess.
ball.
Yeah,
3D chess, spring ball.
Did I say 4D chess? God, yeah, 3D chess. Sorry.
Even volleyball.
Fine. Who played volleyball?
I don't know, but I remember it being
That'd be
mentioned.
a trivia question. I don't know.
I do remember it's still a thing.
I don't
Another
remember anyone
thing-
Thing on Ryza, the one episode where Worf is like going around sabotaging Ryza and
Oh boy,
committing treason,
One with
but
Vanessa
that was
Williams.
nothing.
2 answers I haven't heard: Calto from Voyager, the Vulcan game, and poker,
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Uh,
Jesus.
the pivotal Next Generation recreational game.
Indeed.
I know, right? Like I'm all like, geez, me and my dumb original series trivia is not really going to pan out anymore.
Whoops.
I actually have one that people might enjoy.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Let's hear it.
go ahead. Tables.
All right. So, and this is beta canon, so I will forgive you if you don't know this. How are the entity at the center of the universe and Q related?
Oh.
When you say the entity at the center of the universe, there are multiple things.
Or sorry,
in my
the center
head.
of the galaxy.
Center of the galaxy.
So when you say center of the galaxy, there's the Cytherians, and then there's the entity from Star Trek V.
Correct. That is the entity I'm referring to.
The one
That
from
was an
Star Trek V?
imprisoned. That was an imprisoned Q.
Close. What do you say, Big J?
No, you got me on this one.
Pass.
So there is a series of novels which I severely recommend if you're a fan of the Q, known as the Q Continuum, ironically enough.
Mm-hmm.
The entity in Star Trek V is an imprisoned being from another sort of extra dimension. And that's also why we have the Great Galactic Barrier, because there's another entity outside of the galaxy trying to get in. And even the, if you remember the green ghostly fat man that shows up on
Mhm.
TOS,
Mm-hmm.
he's one as well as the red ball-like one that drives people mad and killing each other and things like that. So all of those entities are linked through Q because Delancey Q basically brought them into existence inadvertently.
Oh.
And that's why he's also looking after Earth, but I won't spoil anything further.
okay.
Synthulu.
It's like Moriarty.
I appreciate that. That's really great.
That was good. That was a good one.
On the Next Generation, we got a series of original series guest stars. We got to see Spock, we got to see McCoy, we got to see Sarek, we got to see Scotty.
Mhm.
Of those four, which one showed up first?
McCoy,
McCoy.
because he was chatting with Data as he walks through the corridors.
First episode.
Very good. Very good.
That was a good one.
Yeah, that was why actually, because that, like, Picard in Star Trek Picard, he's like 94.
Mm-hmm.
100? Picard.
But
yeah, he's
but
94.
McCoy is 137, he
I
says,
know,
or
right?
something. And I'm like, so why is he acting so old? I don't know.
Well, I mean, not everyone who's of the same age is going to act or possibly be exactly the same. I mean, I'm in my 40s and I feel old, and someone who's in their 50s probably doesn't feel as bad. I mean, when you can't even sleep without waking up and your arm hurts or you're pulled a muscle near your freaking hamstring or something. It just, I don't know.
That's an extra 40 years difference, though.
I got you. True.
I don't know.
I don't have all.
It just struck me as like, oh wow, human like lifespan is really long. That's why Bree is like almost 40, because that's kind of the age where you would like start or be at the beginning-ish of your captainhood.
Mm-hmm.
So Go ahead,
Last
Zach.
question.
I sidebarred.
Last question for all the points.
Okay.
What did Patrick Stewart hate about the Ready Room set?
The Ready Room set. Wasn't it the fish?
It was the fish.
Oh, I think I have heard that one. Why do you hate the fish?
He just wasn't a fan of Livingston,
Huh. Okay.
which was the name of the fish, named after one of TNG's producers.
He's a lionfish, right?
Mhm.
It was a lionfish. Gosh,
Good
I should just
catch.
hang up my trivia master credentials and give them back.
Well,
to
I'm doing a
Rob.
TNG watch Thursday.
So it's
But-
fresh.
But I always know it looks spiky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys are going to be watching track and be like, "Oh, Dag's going to ask me this someday." I gotta know. And that's it for Trek trivia. Thank you for playing.
Yeah,
Thank you for
having me.
hosting. Yeah. So I think that's about it. We're coming up on 2 hours. So
You guys did it to me again.
yeah, we did. We
Well,
just
but
have
that's
someone to
that's
talk
okay. I
about.
mean, there's, like we said before, we're under this COVID-19 quarantine, so y'all don't have anything more to do than sit and listen to our hour and 50-minute podcast.
On the
That's
next
fine.
episode
Yeah.
of Beyond Trek Podcast, Watney and Mike will fight to the death.
Oh, that was good. I like that.
I'm lying.
Put them up. No.
Well, Mike, thank
You
you.
will knock yourself out.
Oh no, wrong genre.
You always have to have it at least once. You got to throw
Yes.
it in.
Yes, you do.
hmm
Mike, it was a real treat. Thank you for coming on. ELH Mark 1. Why don't you tell our listeners and our audience your different your Twitch, your YouTube, just give it all to us again. Where
can we find you online?
Sure. Yeah, it is ELH MK1 on Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, Patreon, and I believe Kickstarter as well. Which fun fact what I'd like to throw out there. The Kickstarter for my original mermaid style setting was very successful. I did want to say thank you to all my supporters there. And I'm hoping that by June, I will have a nice looking premium PDF that the masses will get. I'm looking really excited to work on that some because, as you can tell, I'm a bit of a perfectionist. So
Well, if you need a content editor, I'll volunteer my part. You can edit that part out, Jay. Sorry.
Oh, man,
No,
let's leave it.
you're
This is all
fine.
good stuff. Yeah, do it.
Yeah, this is good. I love it. We'll talk after.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah. And for our listeners as well, for the host and Beyond Trek as a whole, you can find us on patreon.com/Beyond Trek. On Twitter, you can find us at Beyond Trek Pod, and on Facebook at Beyond Trek Productions.
And we
Find
would
us there.
definitely like to widen that production. And we've got this Tech with Tato that Dag did recently. And
The next episode is going to be about the NX Enterprise.
yes, that's awesome. So basically, you and one of our guys that does the production with us you're going to sit around and sit and talk about the different technologies, talk about the ships, et cetera, et cetera. So the first one's going to be on the NX-01. So that will be great to have something there. Would love to see the stuff that you guys are writing, recording, doing. Your Fenrir thing sounds awesome. That's great. Love to see some more of that. Any of these things you guys do, that's what Beyond Trek Productions is all about, is these little pieces of giving creativity and outlet. And each of us has sort of that thing that we do. And so that's awesome to give it kind of that variety feel. So between Starfleeters, TikTok, Fenrir, all that stuff, that's what the YouTube channel is there for. So hopefully at some point see some of that stuff. And Dag is doing a great job, basically the producer and director of that and of Tech Potato. And we're doing you've got a game show that's coming up that's going to be a part of it as well.
The Nth Degree. We just need people to pop in for trivia.
Yep. Well, count me
Yes.
in. I'm in. So yeah, that's going to be a trivia show. It's going to be great. These are good times. So again, thank you all. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Watney, Dag.
Yeah. We'll see
Thanks
you
to
next
the
time.
listeners.
Bye.
We are Beyond Trek Podcast. Lower your inhibitions and surrender your ears. We will add inspirational and hilarious Trek content to your day. Your attention will adapt to subscribe to us. Resistance is futile.